What is the worst second-hand embarrassment you've had to suffer through? Watching pallbearers lose control of a coffin they were carrying down a steep set of granite church steps after the funeral was over. An ice sleet storm took place during the funeral service, so the steps were slick. Several pallbearers went down as the coffin landed on the granite steps and slid the rest of the way down to the sidewalk below. Fortunately, the lid didn't open, but we all felt badly for them as the look on their faces showed they were mortified. Rigor mortified. Probably not that bad in the grand scheme of things, but it's been going on for months now. My friend will just blurt out guesses to questions in my physical chemistry class. She sits in the front row, and before anyone has a chance to answer if they actually know, she will just randomly guess, over and over again. It's so awkward because she is almost always wrong, and the teacher asks her to explain and she doesn't ever have a good reason for what she said. I am really curious about your friend now. This was honestly one of the saddest funniest days of my existence. My dad passed away unexpectedly September 2015. I am the second oldest of 6 kids, ages 15, 17, 19, 23, 26, 29. Our parents are divorced and all of us were a lot closer with my father. His birthday is in May and for us, it was an especially difficult day. The year before all he wanted was to go out for dinner, and with our schedules, we just couldn't seem to get it together. We all decided to take off work and go to dinner at his favorite seafood restaurant on his birthday after he passed. My mom must have mentioned this to my father's friend that she had seen in passing that week. I should also note that we all have a very dark sense of humor, which we got from our dad. Anyways, we're at the table finishing up dinner and the waiter comes over with 2 huge trays of dessert with candles in them and excitedly asks us, "Where's the birthday boy? Where's Keith?" We all just looked at him with our jaws dropped. My father's name is Keith. His friend had called the restaurant to bring over desserts at the end of the meal and told them not to sing happy birthday. That was obviously overlooked. At first we all stared at him blankly, and then my mom explained to him that we were out for our father's birthday who had passed away months prior. For some reason we all at the same time lost it laughing. We all felt so bad for our waiter, who at this point looked like he was going to throw up. He just set down the desserts, candles still lit, and apologized profusely to us. We weren't upset at all. We all felt really badly for him. He actually looked like he was about to cry. We all probably looked insane because there was uncontrollable laughter for quite some time. Anyways, my dad would have been happy to know that we laughed a lot that day and spent the day together. HBD Dad, miss you every dang day. Mother, now I'm tearing up. Sorry for your loss. Went with my dad to get a blizzard at Dairy Queen one day. Now, my dad can be very particular about what he likes. These events are few and far between, but he knows what he wants. What he doesn't want is the cashier flipping the blizzard over to show that the ice cream is so cold it'll stay in the cup. I'm assuming that since minimum wage fast food life sucks, but having worked similar jobs before, that these young kids are required by policy to do the signature flip. We're in the drive-thru, we pay, we get our ice cream, and the kid flips it. So, my dad flips out. It wasn't an angry tirade and it certainly wasn't meant to be directed at the kid, but I definitely was mouthing "I am so sorry" to this kid as my dad rambles on about napkins and how the cup dribbles when it's flipped over. As we drove away, I had to explain to my dad that there's a 90% chance the kid hates his job, and if he does, it's 100% because of customers like him. If they don't do the flip, the customer gets their next blizzard free. My ex coming out for dinner with my parents and I knowing he wouldn't have to pay and always ordering the most expensive thing on the menu. One time in particular we all ordered pasta dishes that were about £10 each and some tap water for the table, and he ordered a £30 steak with sides and a beer. Never felt more embarrassed in my life. Oh man, that is the worst. I always feel so awkward when I'm being treated, and I just can't imagine feeling like this is an okay thing to do. I'm a nanny to a set of kids whose mother has a few issues that we all do our best to work around. So one day she invites herself and the kids to my house. I live about 2 hours away in the deep countryside, and it's suggested that we go to a local petting zoo. It's a really good petting zoo. For half of the year it's a working farm and the other half is open to the public. and they have a lot of different props for the kids to play with, so it's very popular. There's always a decent crowd at it. One of the things they have is an old fire truck done up on the inside with a sing-along video. It's one of the most crowded attractions. We managed to grab seats and the truck starts up, as does the music for the sing-along. The kid's mother starts singing along, very loudly and off-key. That's not that unusual. Sometimes the adults sing with the kids. Except, the song was "She'll Be Coming Round the Mountains," and the kid's mother was replacing one of the "I yippee" lines with "Your grandma is a hippie," very loudly. The truck was getting quiet, and she didn't seem to notice. She also happened to be sitting next to her son, who was about 2 years too old for this kind of carry-on and was visibly mortified. Her daughter was sitting next to me and I could feel her cringing. My sister lived with my husband and I for about 6 months. Near the end of her stay, my husband hosts a rush party for his old college fraternity at our house. The guys come over in the early afternoon. Cue my sister walking down the stairs in her bikini, pausing and stretching for effect at the bottom. None of the guys give her more than a cursory glance. She announces that she's going to lay out and work on her tan. Now in the entire 6 months at our home she has never laid out to tan. But by sheer coincidence, she simply must tan right as our house is filled with fraternity boys. One of the guys leans over and asks me, does she normally do this? Nope. First time. Everyone gets a little chuckle and without saying anything they all must have telepathically decided to intentionally ignore her. Sister bends over and lays her towel on the ground right in a prime viewing spot from the windows, which span the whole back of the house. No one looks. She lays on her back and poses seductively. No one looks. She tries another pose. Nothing. Flips over and gets on her hands and knees, but to the window to adjust her towel. No one looks. Lays on her stomach and untied the back of her bikini top so she won't get tan lines. No one seems to notice. Eventually she grabs her towel and stomps back to her room. Total elapsed tanning time was 15 minutes. I have to hand it to those guys. That was awesome. She's been pulling this kind of crap for years. Seeing the manipulative hot girl who goes through life treating people like crap get completely shut down by a house full of men was the stuff that dreams are made of. I guess this isn't exactly second-hand embarrassment, since she was the only one embarrassed. It was definitely cringeworthy. Beautiful. This happened at a homecoming rally in high school. The cheerleaders organized a game where 3 blindfolded players were each to be kissed by a cheerleader and he had to guess which cheerleader kissed him. It so happened that the 3 players chosen for the game were each dating a cheerleader. The first blindfolded player steps up and waits for his kiss. He gets a demure kiss on the cheek. The students are murmuring and laughing. The MC asks him which cheerleader kissed him and he predictably answers with his girlfriend's name in a questioning voice. The MC says, "Good guess. You must have esp." Everybody laughs uproariously and he removes his blindfold. To his embarrassment and everyone's mirth, his mother was substituted for a cheerleader. Player 2's turn went much the same as player 1's. Player 3 decides to take it up a notch. When he is getting his kiss on the cheek he reaches out and grabs the kisser and locks her in a bear hug and French kisses her for about a minute while giving her butt a good squeeze. The students are going bananas. He steps back and a broad, proud smile stretched across his face. He removes the blindfold and standing a foot in front of him is his mother. Awkward silence ensues. My nephew is a child with a vivid imagination to say the least. He is also very much his mother's son, and thus has a flair for the dramatic, especially when tied into music or the theater. He'll take any opportunity to perform an impromptu show, most of which center around dinosaurs, chicken nuggets, and the word poo. During one of our rare and mass family get-togethers, the conversation turned to music, and my nephew, age 6 at the time, announced that he loved Black Sabbath's Iron Man, and knew all the words to it. As soon as this proclamation passed his lips, we knew we were in for some crap. The room was dim, eerie, the adults were slouched in chairs or slumped on the floor, and light beamed down to one spot in the living room. My nephew took this prime space, turned on the music at eardrum-bursting volume and proceeded to stand. I don't actually think he knew what he'd do during the time that he had our attention, and so he just proceeded to linger there, uncomfortable under our scrutiny. He stood, awkwardly, his eyes darting from relative to relative as he murmured snatches of the lyrics under his breath, and stared in what I assume was meant to be a meaningful, menacing manner. To spare his feelings, none of us could appear not to be paying attention, and thus we couldn't escape the situation. Occasionally he'd shift into a different manly man superhero pose, but for the most part we were locked in a 4-minute silence, enraptured by the boy before us and squirming and burning second-hand embarrassment. It was excruciating. TL. Doctor, my nephew decided to give us all a performance to Black Sabbath Iron Man at a family get-together, and proceeded to just stand awkwardly whilst none of us could get away. Poor kiddo. When I was a kid, my parents took me to a restaurant with a live amateur singer who asked who in the building could dance. I ran to the front of the room and I didn't know how to dance, and in my awkward shuffling I accidentally stepped on his audio control mixer thing on the floor and broke it. No more music that night. When Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F came out in theaters, my friend invited a bunch of us to go. At the beginning, there was a message from one of the voice actors where he thanked the viewers for watching and supporting the show and the movie. My friend who organized it decided to yell "You're welcome" at the top of his lungs, fully expecting everyone to laugh at his comedic genius. No one did. Might not be the worst, but just recently my brother and I were in a waiting room. Guy is sitting there with his super cute baby girl, all smiley, keeps staring at us as babies do. My brother asks the dad how old she is, what's her name, etc. What a pretty name. My friend had a daughter last year with the same name, but the baby died. The dad just rolled with it and there was really nothing I could do to stop my brother. For crap's sake, don't talk to a new parent about dead babies, especially ones that share their kid's name. My mom and I were at a cell phone kiosk in the mall. My mom decided, while talking to the sales guy, to rip a fart. It was silent but stunk like rotten eggs. The guy behind the kiosk tried to keep a straight face while talking and slowly backing away from my mom. I was mortified and gagging, and my mom said thanks and walked away like nothing. Never rip a fart and staying immobile. Always rip and walk away so the smell can't be traced to you. During speech class, one of my friends gave a presentation on suicide. He used a story of someone he knew who had just killed themselves maybe a month earlier. He ended up bawling immediately in front of the class for 2 or 3 minutes. The teacher made him start over and finish his speech. It was so bad. I was sitting in the front row just watching him have the worst experience of college. The second-hand embarrassment was horrendous. As a person who taught speech at a major university this past spring, I would have let the kid sit down and just graded the rest of the speech based on his outline, or even let him come back with a different topic the next week. The primary duty of a speech professor is to reduce a student's communication apprehension, and forcing a speech on a delicate topic is a crappy move. Watching a friend try to impress a girl by telling her that he repaired the roof of the Pentagon after 9/11 and the dude isn't even 30 yet. She didn't buy it. The boy loves his stories. I guess he meant his family's business did contract work, but even then he lives in the Midwest and I don't think that company has clearance. Experience third-hand embarrassment from a true story. My close friend, let's call him Roy, was dating a girl for 3 years. He compromised everything for her. I didn't necessarily approve of that, but I figured he'd get his balls back after putting up with it for a while. He finally decided to ask permission to marry the girl, Jane, and called me beforehand. He said he planned on proposing in a year and being engaged for 1 year so he could properly prepare finances. Cool, straightforward, right, wrong, so he hangs up. Apparently, what had happened after that was, he asked permission, got overwhelming approval, and while they were talking, they secretly contacted Jean to show up. She rushed over, thinking it was an emergency, and asks why Roy was there. Her parents look at Roy and say okay, propose. Astonished, he looks at her and said, I hadn't bought the ring yet, it's not even ordered, and they forced him to propose anyway. Keep in mind, he lost his balls so he couldn't say no. You'd think he'd stop getting pushed around at this point. Nope. So he calls me after and I'm like, WTF, when are you getting married now? Well, her parents decided in 3 months. So prepare to rent a suit in 3 months. WTF, I exclaim, and I tried to talk him into getting his balls back and say no for finances sake. But he went through with it anyway. I had to stand through my buddy's wedding. Finances were tight on his side and only had 3 months. so they didn't that fancy party before the wedding. In retaliation, her parents decided last minute to uninvite 98% of Roy's friends. I was the only guy who made the cut that wasn't family. There were 98 family members of hers at the wedding, 12 on his, counting siblings, grandparents, both step-parents, and aunts and uncles. Just that. And me. It was so awkward. It sounds funny on first look, but I'm detecting serious narc behavior from her parents and some abuse going on here. It's not about him getting his balls back. He's being psychologically abused and manipulated. In college, I had a professor who was very odd, apparently due to some heavy medications he was on. It's hard to explain what he was like, but he was always spacey and seemed kind of drunk. Add in his naturally flamboyant personality and he seemed downright loopy at times. Anyway, he would use a microphone and record the lectures because we were in a big 200+ person class. One day during the bathroom break in the middle of class, he went to the bathroom and forgot to turn off his microphone. We hear everything perfectly. He's taking a leak and mumbling nonsense to himself. Then he rips a few huge farts and moans. Then he starts washing his hands and goddang it, there's no freaking soap. A lot of students had left the room, but at least half of us, approximately 100, had stayed behind and listened to the entire thing in silent hushed laughter. He came back into the room, obviously noticed something was going on, and then his face went blank as he looked down and noticed his mic was still on. He realized what had just happened. The most hilarious part about all of this is that he still uploaded the entire lecture, bathroom break and all, for our listening pleasure. Got to give him credit for putting the learning needs of his students above his own dignity by still uploading the lecture. In recent weeks, I had a co-worker WJO decided the best way to teach 7th graders about Appalachian history was to read WPRD foreword from a book written in the 50s. Also, I've sat through so many elementary school talent shows where the kids think they're hot crap. They rarely are. I'm not sure if this is considered secondhand, since I was involved, but I was way less embarrassed for me than I was for him. Senior year of high school, agreed to attend military ball with recent ex-boyfriend because he swore we were cool. It was no big deal, I'd broken up with him. We were friends. He was leaving soon, etc. We went to separate schools, but had lots of overlapping friends because my town is just like that, and this event was all the ROTCs for all the high schools in our district. He already had tickets, I got a dress, and I go with him. We have a great time, until about an hour before the dance ends. You know that scene in Top Gun, where they all sing in the bar? He gets his whole squad or whatever the heck they were to do that, with him ending it on his knee asking me to marry him. I'd broken up with him because he was on a very straight, short trip to Serious Town and heading into the military expecting me to do the young military wife thing, and I was going to college. I said I really wish you hadn't done this, and everyone went silent and I walked outside. Was with my wife at a restaurant downtown. The place was pretty small so the tables were very close. The couple next to us were definitely on a first date based on the topics of conversation. The guy was ordering the most expensive items on the menu as well as a few expensive glasses of wine. The gal followed suit. Time for the check. Dude's card gets declined. I still think to this day that he had planned it. Girl gets her card out. It gets declined. No way to pay. They were both red in the face and kinda squirming. I'd have paid for their meal but he seemed like a total douche and her voice was super annoying. Anyway, the guy had his friend stop by and pay their bill. Awkward. Gotta love your logic on not helping. I'd do the same dang thing. Went to a rural cabin with my best friend for several weeks a few summers back. The amount of hentai on his phone was unfreaking real. So basically we're driving on this long butt road with nobody but his dad in the car and he starts watching the stuff on his phone but with those cheap $5 headphones from airlines that aren't really noise cancelling at all. Me and his dad just kinda sat there awkwardly in silence while Japanese and orgasm sounds rang through his headphones. Needless to say, I never told him. During after school drama club, high school, our mentor had us play some sort of bonding game. I can't remember the point, but it required us running from side to side of the room. The room had this big section of all carpeted semicircle steps. Think amphitheater style. I think it went about 6 wide steps up. The different wide steps were used during choir class to stagger the different sections. Well, there was this one very shy, obese kid who was in drama club. He obviously had an interest in drama since he was there, but he didn't participate much, kinda quietly observed. Well, he seemed to actually really come out of his shell during this bonding game and jumped right in, running across the room. In the midst, right at the bottom and center of the semicircle, he fell, face first, and during his fall, his pants slipped down, so his bare butt was center on display, while everyone abruptly stopped at the sound of him falling. It was mortifying. I wish I could say I or someone helped him, but I don't remember what happened afterwards. Just remember that butt, feel horrible about it to this day. Had a lecturer who absolutely hated anyone being on their phone, and in one lecture there was complete silence as someone's phone starting ringing and their ringtone was Peter Griffin singing "I've Got a Finger Stuck in My Bum." What the heck are you talking about? That crap would have been hilarious. This may not have been the worst all time for me, but it's something bad that happened recently. The pizzeria down the block leaves their garbage and recycling out around the corner. I walked by one day and saw a middle-aged woman rummaging through it, most likely looking for cans to return for the 5-cent deposit. Perhaps she was looking for food. She had a little girl with her, probably about 6 or 7 years old. The girl was old enough to know what was happening, and had the most embarrassed look and body posture as she basically was trying to make herself invisible. My heart broke for her. I gave the woman all I had in my wallet, probably about $80, and wished them luck. Plot twist, she had dropped her Cartier bracelet. But yeah, sad. Really sad. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.